Hello and welcome to MotorInc First. Karthik has just returned. No, I want to rephrase that. World-renowned auto expert Kartikeya Singhee has just returned from driving the new Tata Nexon CNG, which is the Tata Nexon, which has been updated with the new CNG. No, it's the same CNG as before, but okay. So now the Nexon is not just available in petrol, diesel, electric, etc. It's also now available in CNG. Karthik's driven it and he's going to tell us about it.
It's like he's taking revenge on Tata for all the variants. He's saying, I will confuse them about what they're selling.
No, it's not a me thing. Before we discuss this, the only thing I learned from Karthik is that Karthik is absolutely crystal clear on this. If you're planning to buy a Tata Nexon, and I'm not making a joke anymore, this is dead serious. If you're buying a Tata Nexon, before you go to the showroom, you should know clearly what you're going to buy. The petrol, the diesel, the CNG, or one of the electrics. If you're not clear about this, going to the showroom is not going to help clarify things any further. Am I on point?
Because, okay, since we've started here, this is a CNG, and the reason for CNG being popular today is that diesel is on the decline, right? Because diesels are becoming more expensive. Tata has still managed with their diesels, the one that's in the Nexon, where you don't need to use AdBlue, right?
Correct.
So low speed city usage and all those factors are not a concern. But going forward, everybody is worried about diesels being banned. And that is the problem, is the question mark that hangs over diesels. That is the problem. And therefore, as an investment, you want something that's easier. So CNGs, therefore, are becoming more and more popular.
Right.
At the same time, Tata also has the EVs. And you can buy an EV for the same price as this. And today you can buy the top spec Nexon EV. Not top spec, but the 45, now with the 45 kilowatt hour battery pack. For about the same price. So there are a lot of options. You can think diesel, you can think CNG, you can think EV. So that question is a valid one. So you have to know which is the one that's right for you. And I think the beauty of CNG right now is that it's an easy pick. It's not the EV ka sophistication wala experience in terms of performance or the hey, practically no running cost argument, right? It doesn't have that, but it's that sensible middle ground.
Okay.
So that's the advantage that CNG
So if
has.
you're being sensible, would you end up with a
He's going with the whole Nexon, all the okay. So we're gonna let's put this to rest right at the start. All the issues with the Nexon that is an issue continues to be an issue here. Right? So these are the things like the seating position for the driver being strange. Where it's a little bit to the left and the steering is too high, and all those kind of things are the same.
Okay.
This is the first time we're seeing a turbo petrol engine with a CNG kit on it in India, which is kind of cool because you have the promise of extra performance, but the efficiency of CNG and stuff like that.
Okay.
But this core engine is the same Revotron engine. And like we discussed recently, even with the Curvv ICE, that this engine has issues in terms of refinement. It has that 3-cylinder thrum, it has that vibiness to it, it is a bit on the louder side. So all of that isn't going to change just because it's become CNG.
No.
All of those factors remain the same.
Right.
So when we're going to discuss the Nexon iCNG, it's going to be as how does the CNG component of it work rather than how is it as a Nexon and then how is it as a petrol and then how is it as a CNG.
I figured out how to make it even more confusing.
Oh, please do tell me.
Is the Tata Nexon CNG E20 compliant?
Oh, yes, sir. It is. It is. I have a sticker to prove that.
All the 3 or 8 liters of fuel that it takes. Huh?
All the no fuel tank is full capacity. Fuel tank is not been.
Oh, it's not a limp home CNG.
No, no.
Yeah,
This
got
is
it, got
so
it.
unlike
Yes.
the Bajaj Freedom,
Yeah.
in which the petrol tank is purely just
No, and it's a legal thing. That limp home category is defined. So it is, I think, 2 liters for a two-wheeler. It's 3 or 5 liters for a three-wheeler. And in a car also, there'll be a similar very low number where the idea is to get you to a CNG pump in case you run out of CNG. And it has no other purpose. The Tiago iCNG also had a full-size fuel tank.
Correct.
And the 2 split bottles of
Correct.
CNG. This, I'm assuming, has the same 2 split bottles.
So this also has, and that's the cool part about the Tata CNG systems, is that they have gone with dual canisters or whatever you want to call them, right? tanks. So,
Batlas.
yeah,
It's
Butlers.
a Maharashtra term, very specifically for the tank that the CNG is put into. And all the taxi guys will tell you, "Piche suitcase mat dalo, batla hai."
Butler, correct. So it has that dual tank design. Um, the tanks are not the
Ooh,
same.
double batla. Sounds good, doesn't it?
The tanks are not the same as the Tiago.
Okay.
Tiago has
5 liters each, I think. 5 kilos each.
it's 25 plus 35.
Ah, yes, they were unequal. Correct,
Correct.
correct, correct. 50
Whereas
kilos
the
total.
Tigor has 35 plus 35.
Correct.
And this is, if I'm not wrong, 30 plus 30 or something like that.
Okay.
This overall capacity, I'll put the exact figures in the graphics in terms of what the tank size
I know
is.
what the next Nexon is going to be.
What?
It'll be the gasoline direct injection engine with a hybrid system, small battery, to give it some boost with CNG.
Wow. The more expensive than the EV also.
It will be the Nexon TCGDI hybrid ICNG.
I'm not looking forward to driving it. That's all I can tell you.
That will be a really long motoring
That
first.
sounds like an automotive khichdi.
It'll be the longest motoring first we've done, and most of it will be just the name. And I won't even go to the variants, I promise.
And in that, I guarantee whoever does this, we're just going to say, what was the point of this? Because it's so expensive.
Yeah.
Because of the combination of all the technologies. So, yeah, that's also why do you not have all these things coming together in one vehicle? Is because you're always trying to balance efficiency and cost. So, doing a hybrid plus a CNG will add weight, will add cost. So, all those things just take it out of the use case, right? For what somebody is willing to pay. So, anyways, the beauty of CNG today is, and like you were talking about tank sizes, is that this gives you the convenience of lower running costs. But when you don't have access to a CNG pump,
You have a full-size fuel tank anyway.
full-size fuel tank, so you can continue to use it as you feel like with complete freedom.
Correct.
And therefore, coming back to the tanks that Tata is using, right? The dual tank structure is a genuine bonus. Because now in this, I'm going to show you some pics of the boot. You can see the tanks under the floor. The floor has been raised. So it's gone from 380 something liters to 320 liters. And the pics that you'll see there are the different ways in which I organized. I used two suitcases. One is a large suitcase, one is a overnighter kind of suitcase, and placed them in different ways in the boot, in which each one of those I could shut the boot. Right? It did not get obstructed. In one of them, where they stacked one on top of the other, the parcel tray got raised up, but it's not like it blocked the view. Right? So it's a fair amount of luggage space that it's offering you, and that's always been my concern with buying a CNG, saying that I don't want to trade up on the practicality of flexibility. Just saying that tomorrow I want to head out of town, I should have some luggage space.
Yeah, and anybody who's ever taken a CNG cab, especially a two-box car, without the third box, you always know that if they're running CNG, your luggage has to go into weird places that they normally wouldn't. So it's either on the roof, it's on the driver's, on the passenger seat in the front, it's beside you on your seat. Some weird configuration has to happen.
Always. And in this also, in terms of packaging, what's cool is that they do have a spare wheel. It's under the floor. It's a space saver. And the way they've packaged it is that there's no issue with ground clearance also. So they've taken care of all the practical things very nicely.
But a tire is supposed to touch the ground, no? So if the ground clearance runs out and a tire only touches the ground and you have a fifth tire on the ground, what difference does it make?
No problem at all. It's an additional bumper underneath. But it's a space saver. That's the only thing that they've done. And it's got the usual kind of drop-down arrangement like you see for underfloor tires. So the packaging that way, very cool.
Nice.
Right? Getting in, I think the first thing that, and we said this even for the Tiago, is like they are taking CNGs upmarket.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Whereas whether you look at Maruti or Hyundai,
they haven't been able to break that stigma of CNG being either the poor man's fuel or the workhorse car's fuel. It's never been the cool fuel.
Correct.
Right.
And Tata's flipping it around entirely. So they debuted the panoramic sunroof with the CNG.
On the Nexon.
Yeah. So that was, and it came first with that. They announced it with that, and now it's going to all the other Nexons.
It might send the wrong message, right?
What is that?
If there is a gas leak, what do you do at home? You open all the
Oh my
windows.
God.
Right? Hey, listen, I'm just trying to make connections here as to why there'd be a panoramic sunroof on a CNG car. He interprets it in his usually sweet and positive way that it's Tata saying, look, CNGs are cool, there's nothing wrong with CNG. And I'm like, yeah, but when an LPG says, it's just how I think.
Khidki kholo. Okay.
No, but honestly, just to put a fine line on it, CNG tanks leaking is a very, very unusual and rare phenomenon, if at all. They are seriously tested. When we were talking about the Bajaj Freedom, we got into a little bit about how serious the testing is.
Correct.
And honestly, I can't imagine it would happen.
So I think the tanks are the thing that you don't have to worry about. The tanks are the toughest part of this entire kit. Everything else has also got to be able to withstand that kind of pressure.
Correct.
And all the lines and all connectors, everything has to be
Correct.
able to deal with that. So the tank is the thing you don't need to worry about. And just so we run through this, like with the Freedom, in case of pressure buildup to the point where the tank cannot take it, there are valves which then release the pressure. There are exits for the gas to be pushed outside the vehicle.
Correct.
So all these are standard bits
Yeah, they're
that are
standard.
done with
Yeah.
CNG equipped vehicles, which is why CNG kits from the factory make so much sense, because all these fail safes can be built in properly.
And the integrations are much tighter, and the quality control is much higher than what a third party post-install kind of system can get you. No two ways about it.
So
Absolutely.
it's great that this comes from
Yeah.
the factory, because it's all clean, and like typically you open the fuel filler door, the nozzle is there integrated there nicely, neatly, so all of it is clean.
Yeah.
That part aside, when you get inside the car, you of course are getting the sense that this is a fully loaded Nexon. It got leatherette seats, it had ventilated seats, and I said panoramic sunroof,
Right.
touchscreen, sound system, JBL sound system, all of that. So this is that top spec, I think, Fearless Plus, and
Max.
now it's PS because it's panoramic sunroof and not just
Fearless
S.
plus PS.
Yeah, so it's the top spec. The only thing that threw me off was that, and I didn't know when I hadn't read up too much about the car.
Actually, isn't PS politically incorrect now? You're supposed to have EA, right?
EA?
You don't have personal secretaries anymore. That's not considered correct. So you should have Nexon Fearless plus EA if you're using it for work.
कहाँ से निकालता है यार?
So, एक मिनट, मैं कहाँ से निकालता हूँ? What is fearless about a Nexon ICNG? You first tell me. Fearless. What is this Discovery Channel and we're watching Bear Grylls?
What does that have to do with this conversation?
Sorry, that's true.
Can we move on with the conversation?
I apologize.
We'll get on with the CNG part, which is why I said let's park the Nexon part.
Yeah, so since we are here, all the variant spec that you've seen in the Petrol has come straight to the CNG with no difference in the luxury quotient, the equipment, features. It's all in the same place, screens, software, everything.
Pretty much. There are some variants that are missing altogether.
That's okay.
Right? But by and large, what you're getting is the same.
So minor differences, but overall big picture, whatever you get in the petrol, diesel, whatever, those features have come to the CNG also.
Yeah.
Price delta is CNG edition, etc.
Correct. So the price difference, since you brought it up, is about ₹1,00,000. This top spec one is $1,30,000, if I'm not wrong. More expensive than the equivalent Nexon Petrol.
Correct.
Because it also has that larger panoramic sunroof.
Right.
So $1,00,000 is what we're looking at, and
so it's $1,00,000 more roughly, but with no lack of features.
No. Yeah. Good one. Good
Well
one.
done. Well done. Okay.
And before the okay, chal.
No, so interior, we are in the same place.
Same place.
Those quirks, all the features, great. Sorted.
All the good stuff.
Yeah.
All the bad stuff.
Correct.
Same.
We know Tata packages their CNGs quite well because they split the two tanks. They get more flexibility out of it, and you've already covered all of that. So let's focus straight on the driving.
Correct.
How is this car to drive, Kartik?
So to drive, it's seamless.
Okay.
Right. So the first stint that I did was in the city, and in that time, it was just so hard to tell when you were using petrol or CNG.
Nice. Okay.
You couldn't tell the drive. So so the Nexon Turbo Petrol, this Revotron engine, makes 120 horsepower, and in the CNG version, the CNG engine, if you're driving it in petrol mode, it still has 120 horsepower.
Right.
But when you're driving it in CNG mode,
Okay.
it has 100 horsepower. So 20 horsepower is gone.
Yeah.
Torque, though, is the same.
Hmm.
But the power torque in CNG mode is made slightly lower in the rev range.
Okay.
And the overall tune of the engine is also different from the pure play petrol because this car is also 110, 120 kilos heavier.
Right.
So they've engineered, they tweaked the ECU so that the drivability is a bit better to compensate for that.
Right.
So all the peak torque, peak power is made a little bit lower in the rev range, 500 RPM. Okay, so when you're driving in CNG mode, you have 20 horsepower less. Torque is the same. But at city speeds, typically as you're driving around, you're not going to feel that drop in power.
Not even a little bit?
So the only time that I felt it, that, oh, I'm having to dab a little bit more than I expected, was this one time I was climbing up a flyover and I wanted to overtake this rickshaw. And I went down all the way flat, saying that, go. And it's like, oh, I'll have to downshift.
Right.
Right. So in that kind of a situation, you feel the need for more power, and in which case you'll do a downshift.
Understood.
In this, I was driving a 6-speed manual. Okay. We only drove the manual because that's all they have with the CNG right now. And I asked Tata, when is the AMT coming? To which the question I got back was, do you want an AMT, or do you think it should be a torque converter, or should it be a DCT? So I was like, listen, I don't care as long as it works properly.
No, we don't have automatic culture in India. If you know the joke, leave us a unique emoji, leave us this one emoji. I mean, I'm just picking an emoji out of
my
that.
God.
But you should have watched something else before this to know exactly what this joke is.
So anyway, so I was quite happy to hear a torque converter come up in the conversation, because torque converters are now, and we've discussed this time and again, new tech always has its gremlins, and it takes time to work them out. Torque converters just work. If you want a simple, reliable solution, torque converter any day. Dual clutches, you'll have to figure it out as a manufacturer, how it works with your engine, how to tune it, what's the reliability, all that jazz. And AMTs are the simple, affordable
But you
solution.
drove the Tiago iCNG IAMT or something like that,
with
right?
the AMT.
How was the AMT integration in that car?
Good.
So if they were to do similar kind of quality of integration into the Nexon and create a iCNG AMT here, you wouldn't have an objection to that either?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I have, in fact, that's what we said in the Curvv Ice, right? That the DCA with the diesel, the dual clutch with the diesel, didn't work at all. That it's a label of dual clutch. But
oh, so then we should create a racer edition with the DCA, right? The Nexon Racer Edition.
Why?
Because it doesn't do anything, but it is a label.
So, so this automatic option doesn't exist right now. It should.
But are they considering it? Do you think logically it makes sense that it will come next?
100%.
Okay.
I think they are the ones who've driven this conversation on saying take CNG premium, and I think they should definitely be doing that. And if they are discussing which,
and okay, so are you confident enough of that to seriously tell somebody out there who's looking at a Nexon CNG right now, saying if you're very, very serious about the Nexon CNG, it is going to be primarily an urban car, and you live in a place like say Mumbai or Bengaluru where traffic is really thick, don't jump in just yet. Hang on a minute. Let the AMT or the torque converter, whatever format of automatic Tata happens to roll out come, then jump in and get the car.
100%.
Okay.
So if there were two things that I had to say, if you're considering a Nexon CNG, Nexon conversation aside, I'm putting that all together on the side. If you were looking at buying this, one reason to not is that I am certain that in some time they will bring in some form of the automatic, right? Whether it's the AMT or the torque converter, whatever. So if you are somebody, and this I do think of still as a primarily urban car, because I'll bring the other part in as well. This has 9 kilograms capacity for CNG, which is the same as the Tiago.
Right.
So it's all the other CNG vehicles in this space, whether it's the Ertiga, the Brezza, they're all at 9 kilograms.
Right.
But this is a more powerful car. And what we saw, and take this with a pinch of salt right now, because this is first impressions. When I got the car, it didn't have the tank filled up completely. I was trying to figure stuff out. So I didn't go and tank it up and because I didn't know how much I was going to end up driving. Point being, I was somewhere at say 3/4 mark of CNG, and I used it down to, let's say, a quarter or a little bit less than that, actually less than that. And in that much, I traveled about 65 kilometers in,
On effectively half a tank.
yeah, right? So this is not gonna, I mean, it's not a CNG only car for extensive travel
Correct.
all
If
the
you're
time.
traveling out on the highway, you're going to be running petrol and CNG mixed conditions depending on where you are at.
Correct.
Okay.
So it is a good city use car for sure, because from that standpoint, even if you have, let's say, 140 kilometers for somebody's daily run, that's plenty.
Yeah.
Right? And you still have petrol to fall back on.
Correct.
So those were the two things. Extensive use with CNG, because this is a more powerful engine, more powerful than everything else. So like the Brezza in CNG mode is about less than 90 horsepower. This is 100 horsepower.
Right.
Right? So the difference, somewhere you're going to feel it.
Got it.
Their claim figures 24 kilometers per kilogram of CNG.
Okay.
I think that is a little bit optimistic.
Yeah.
But we'll see when we drive it. But this is something, if you're looking to evaluate, if you're evaluating the Nexon CNG, is something that you should check out. Just validate before you make a decision.
Fair enough.
Right? So this is these are the reasons to say pause if you're looking to buy a Nexon iCNG.
Understood.
That's about it. Okay. In terms of driving, like I said, it's easy to drive. Right from startup, it starts off in CNG. There are some conditions in which it starts off in petrol. What we've understood is, if the oil temperature is under 20 degrees Celsius, then it starts off in petrol.
Cold start issues have been solved.
So there'll be no problem with startup, lubrication, all of that. It starts in petrol. And once it's warmed up, then it moves on to CNG, which is under 30 seconds. So that's typically how it is. You have a CNG and petrol mode switch on the center console. So you can switch to petrol whenever you feel like. And it does it quietly. You just hear a light click. There's no, earlier, older CNGs, when you switched, it would do that stutter. You'd feel that step.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Nice.
It's clean. It works smoothly. So it feels like a sophisticated experience for city use, for sure.
Nice.
Right? The clutch, the bite is a little bit on the higher point. So you have to take a little bit of care, but it's not heavy. So it was fine. Shifts are not great, which is all the familiar Nexon stuff, right? The same kind of slightly clanky shifts. That's there. But drivability, not a problem. Even at 1000 RPM, 1000 to 1500 RPM, it was easy in traffic. It was
A little bit of three cylinder.
so that comes in a little bit higher in the rev range.
Okay.
That's the thing. Even with the TCGDI in that range, it felt nice. It's once you get past where the loads start increasing, the revs start increasing, then it's very obvious.
Yeah.
So in this low, really chill mode driving scenes, you'll
be fine. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So city usability, I had no issue. It was absolutely okay. The suspension, because of the additional weight, it has been retuned. And I think they've managed to find a very similar feel to the regular Nexon.
Okay.
In the sense that it's not something that I'm overall a fan of, but the good part of it is that it goes over really bad stuff really well. It doesn't get shocked by it. It doesn't hammer, through the potholes or something like that. It's quiet. It's composed over that kind of stuff. But as we've seen with the Nexon, it feels a bit soft at the rear. So there is always that little bit of a movement
at the back
happening over there. And it is a car that we've said again and again that doesn't always settle down. It always has this little bit of movement about it. And that's there. But in that sense, it feels like the regular Nexon. Every now and then, you might feel the weight of it, the additional weight of it. But it's not something that
super intrusive. It's not, so we are okay.
It's very manageable.
Right.
So it feels natural, like a normal Nexon. Plenty good that way.
Okay.
From that point onwards, the time spent on the highway. This is how I'm going to put it. That if you're traveling solo on the highway, getting up to 100 kilometers an hour.
No stress.
No stress. It's smooth, it's effortless. It gets there. You can even go past that. It's not that there's a drop off. It's just, again, like that same flyover situation.
When you're trying to get torque to overtake something, suddenly you realize, oh, calorific
value. When you
value.
want that little bit of a bump up
Correct.
in responsiveness, when you go flat, then you feel like every time it was like, oh, I'm having to push down more than I wanted to or expected to. And then I'd switch to petrol. And in that, I just feel that, yeah, this is that 20 horsepower then becomes more apparent, the
Right.
gap, when you're out on a faster road. And the switch is so easy that you don't really have to think about it.
Right.
Like on the highway, then I just end up using
But
petrol.
do you think, just as an idea, the Chetak has the same issue? Electric, you put it in economy mode, you do this, it's not going. So Bajaj says, I can see that you're requesting torque right now. I'm going to quickly give you sport mode, and you go through the situation, and then it turns back to economy mode, right? You think that since the integration is smooth now, you're saying there's a click and that's it. Couldn't they just do that? Saying, oh, torque demand is high because they're trying to overtake. You're already past, say, 85 kilometers an hour when the system awakens. And when you do this, you quickly switch to petrol. And as long as you're on the throttle with that much of an opening, it stays in petrol. When you back off, the opening goes right back to CNG. You can't do that?
I think it should be done.
Okay.
And that's one of the things I wrote in my notes. Does this have an auto switch feature? And which, to me, makes so much sense.
No, because it's already in the name, right?
Yeah.
Intelligent. CNG?
I'm giving you time.
Think about it. It's the I CNG. What does the I stand for?
This is a point he also made when we spoke about the Tiago CNG. And the Tiago CNG was like, okay. But I think in the Nexon, it felt like this would be the natural progression.
Yeah, and I'm also correlating from the other side where you're saying, look, these are not the largest fuel tanks for CNG anyway, and you are probably going to be in petrol mode anyway, right? So if you are doing a small extra urban trip where you can afford to run in CNG, then that sense of loss of performance in that momentary situation when you're trying to pass somebody can just be prevented by the machine saying, I recognize that you want extra torque right now. The fastest way is to give it to you from the petrol. We've got the refinement down pat. So here, have some torque. Overtake that thing, and then we can go back to saving fuel again.
It's like the automatics used to have that kick down switch, right?
Yeah.
So once you hit the switch, then it would just go down a gear automatically.
Yeah,
Effectively
like the same thing.
Yeah. It actually makes a lot of sense. That would be the simplest way to do it. If your foot has gone down flat and you're in CNG mode, just switch to petrol.
It's what I tell Bajaj to do on the Freedom 2. I mean, Bajaj says that, look, the performance output in petrol and CNG is exactly the same. But when you accelerate, you can tell that there is a difference. And I don't mind the difference. But if I am going straight to 80-85% throttle, then I'm quite happy to have this Freedom switch to petrol, give me as much performance as it's got. And then when I back off down to 60-70% throttle or a steady state, go right back to burning CNG. That system is also smooth enough to pull this off. So I wouldn't think that this would interrupt your flow.
Yeah. I think that the iCNG, the I part of it would have really been earned with something like that.
Yes.
So as is, yes, you still do have to toggle, but the systems work well, what it has.
So it's like an old Maruti 800 in that sense, you remember?
Switch off the AC.
Yeah. We used to do this, okay? We were in college and my teacher used to drive us home, me and Chandan both. And whoever was sitting in the front would have one finger on the AC button. And the idea was that when Pramila ma'am decided to overtake something, we'd switch off the AC for her. Come on the other side and we'd switch the AC back on.
Yeah, right? Correct. We'd always, like, some cabbies even do it now.
Yeah,
like,
they still do it.
When you hit the guards, they'll be like, AC off.
Yeah.
And they're typically on CNG.
Yeah, they are. No, because you can, in the cabs at least, where this is in many cases, non-factory integrated systems, you can tell how much inferior the integration is because at the slowest of slopes, immediately the thing will start to judder and then he has to immediately downshift and find a lower gear. Worst case scenario, if it's really steep, go back to petrol for a moment, which they hate doing obviously because the cost delta for them is quite a bit. But you can tell you're in a CNG because every time they overtake something, and they never change gears, right? It's like third or fourth the whole time. And you're like, what are you laughing at?
That should be a meme. Okay. So where were we?
You were talking about how on the highway, up to 100, doing normal things, you don't really notice a difference in CNG. Once you get past that, you demand torque to overtake something quickly, you're going to see the difference of that 20 bhp.
Yeah. So that power difference is something that you feel more when you're on the highway. Is it very obvious? No. In certain conditions, yes. Right? It just, you feel the need for that more and you can switch to that quite easily. So I think from a usability standpoint, it's a good enough balance that they managed to strike. At its core, is it enough in terms of range? Is it enough in terms of fuel efficiency? Those are things that you will have to evaluate. We will evaluate once we spend more time with it. So those are some of the concerns around the iCNG. But as a package that can give you the low running costs of CNG, yet be practical for the family and yet be premium enough, I think they've managed to wrap that up really nicely.
Right.
Right. Relative to, we started off the conversation with Nexon EV, right? So they are in the ballpark. It's, and genuinely, I know that you're thinking of an EV. I would think if I'm just worried about low running costs, I
You
could.
see, in a way, I'm just being so cynical that I love it. In a way, the electric Nexon and the CNG are both CNGs only, One is coal, not gas, and the other is compressed natural gas.
Oi, good one.
Okay, I know the situation is changing, and eventually we will be a coal minority energy economy. At the moment, though, we are not.
Yeah, we are not.
So it's MCNG, mostly coal, not gas, and ICNG, intelligent compressed national.
MCNG. Oh, that would be a good one, man. Curvv dot MCNG. Okay. So
Sorry, but I think the point you were making is a good one before I interrupted you as usual, which is electrics at the same price as a CNG. How do you choose between the two?
correct.
And that's Nexon to Nexon.
Yeah. So people who are more risk averse, for them the CNG is a great option. Who don't want the worries of what happens if this, that. The CNG is a great option because at what is it, 70, 80 rupees for a kilo, you're getting to travel in the same kind of comfort and convenience as a regular Nexon without any of those questions coming about.
Right.
So it's a good, we did a calculation. I think 40,000 kilometers is what it's coming to between a petrol Nexon and a Nexon iCNG. If you were looking to get one, that's the amount of kilometers you'd have to clock. At 40,000 kilometers, you'll balance out the additional cost.
Right.
But I think take that with a pinch of salt, like I said.
Okay.
That's at 24 kilometers. Why am I going on saying kilometers today? I don't know what's going on. What do you call it?
Kilometers.
Kilometers, huh? This is the second time I've done it.
Yeah.
24 kilometers per kilogram. I think it'll be lower than that. So the recovery phase will be a little bit longer.
So let's call it 45,000 kilometers is when the ICNG will pay for itself.
Correct.
So if you're calculating, will you be able to save money over the petrol? You have to look at how many years, months would it take you to get to about 45,000 kilometers. That's the point where you're hitting a break even versus the petrol.
Correct.
Okay.
And so this is ideal for people who are typically risk averse. If you are somebody who's not so risk averse, but you are clocking a lot of kilometers, then you could very well go for the EV instead.
Right.
The only difference is at the same price point, the EV, you're getting the 45 now, the Nexon EV with the larger battery pack, the 45, is available at pretty much the same price point as this top spec one, but you'll have fewer features.
Like sunroofs.
Yeah, ventilated seats, leatherette seats, those kind of things won't be there. But functionally, if you're thinking about it from a commercial standpoint, from an economic standpoint, and saying that I will clock a lot of kilometers, then you could very easily be going for the
and
Nexon
what he
EV.
means by risk averse, just to underline it, is not like something's going to explode or blow up or whatever. He's saying the risk of living with an electric versus the risk of living with an ICE or a CNG in the terms of we know what ICEs and CNGs do. With the electrics, there's always a little bit of a question mark about what happens after the battery warranty runs out. How much would I have to pay if the battery fails and I'm not under warranty coverage anymore? And this situation won't happen tomorrow, right? It's 5 years from now, but you're worried about it anyway. What will be the resale value of this car, which is still yet to stabilize as a thing in the Indian market, right? How much do you sell off an electric for? If all of these questions worry you, you are not ready for that risk, is what he means, in which case the CNG might be a more peaceful solution for you.
Correct.
But if you're saying, yeah, but I can see the advantage of it, it's quiet, it's a little bit more performance, blah, 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 but you're not too worried about the end stage questions, fine, go for the electric. It's the same price, more or less.
and in that regard, we were just doing the research for how the EV stacks up. And the incredible part is you are getting the 45 Nexon, whatever, I think the Fearless 45 for 30,000 rupees more than the long range, right? Which is, I mean, obviously you'll go for the 45. So those kind of changes that will keep going on in EVs, which might be another stress point for you.
Correct.
So in that case, the CNG becomes the safer bet.
Correct.
Right? So if I have to think relative to, let's say, the Brezza, I think the Brezza's advantage will be that it's a 4-cylinder engine. It's going to be smoother, quieter, and the Brezza has become a great city car.
Yeah.
Like in fact, the mild hybrid with the manual for me is enough for city use, right? And if you're looking for a calmer, cleaner driving experience, that might be it. I have not driven it, but basis the experience with that 1.5 liter four-cylinder engine generally, which is super refined, you know that that will be an advantage over there. That also has a 9 kilogram capacity, but the Brezza is not going to offer you the feel-good factor of the Nexon,
Right.
because that's only available in the mid-spec variant. So it's overall the Nexon goes up to over 14 lakhs for its top spec variant with this ICNG manual, whereas the Brezza is in the 12 lakh range.
Understood.
So that feel good factor and all the goodies you are not going to get with the
Right.
Brezza. Also, this has 6 airbags, which is standard, whereas the Brezza will only get 2. So those kind of things, right? So the temptation with this is of course going to be that this feels like a proper car,
Correct.
not a CNG value pick. It's giving you all the satisfaction out of what you would expect from a Nexon, as is usually the case. And on that note, what we will also talk about is, and this is just so you know that this is something that we experience on a regular basis. Do with it as you will. We had a situation where I was driving through a crossing, and as I was approaching the crossing, the car just stopped responding to any throttle inputs. Uh, right? It basically went into a kind of limp mode where the throttle was completely disconnected. When I
So completely not going.
completely not going, yes. So as I made it across the crossing and I parked on the other side, then I took a video where you can see that I've got my foot down flat. You can see that the revs are not responding at all, and I had just switched into the petrol mode that time to just see what the drivability is like in the city at that point. So I thought maybe it's because of that. Something happened with the switchover.
The Nexon objected to your carbon footprint.
Yeah. So I switched back to CNG, all of that, nothing happened. Then I did the obvious modern day solution for every problem, switch off and switch on. And after that, it started off with a little bit of a roughness, which was there before as well. When it was in the limp mode, it just felt like it was stuttering. You'll see a little bit of that vibration in the video.
I think you're reading too much into it.
क्या मतलब?
The Tata car was just trying to make you feel at home.
अच्छा.
See, when you go for launches to other places, and we've all had reports of small issues happening with the Tatas.
Yeah.
Correct? This time the car was sent to you saying, we're not doing an event for this, but you're in Pune, the car is in Pune, we'll send you the car.
Yeah.
It was just trying to make you feel at home.
Yeah.
Because so far you've not had any issues. So it's just before you get home. Just to make sure that the experience is complete. Here's like a minor failure that you can recover from.
Yeah. So I reached out to the Tata team saying that this has happened. And in the meantime, I had restarted it. It had started working normally, but the engine check light had not gone. So I just let them know that this is the case. I don't know then whether whatever I feel and experience of the car is as per spec or not.
Right.
Right. So I had to let them know that.
Yeah.
So they got back to me in some time, and they said that you just need to switch it on and off 3-4 times, and if everything is okay,
then
the
that
check
light will
light should
reset.
clear out. So it was funny. By then, I had done it, I think 2 times. So I said, okay, fine. If that's it, it's fine. I pulled over. I was on the highway at that point. So I pulled over and I stopped and I restarted, and sure enough, the sign cleared out. So they had a fix for it, so to speak. So these are the things that, as a Tata owner, are the things that might be normal. And if you're okay with that, that's good for you. Right? So these are things that you should anticipate. If it doesn't happen, great. That's awesome. But assume that things like this will happen.
Yeah. The evidence says probably.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that was the only niggle that I had in this
Not
experience. Yeah, not bad for sure. It's a more complicated car, so the fact that it has fewer issues than usual is a good thing. And coming to something that you'd asked when we were talking about the Tiago, how does it always work on CNG mode? Doesn't it affect reliability and the lubrication aspect of the cylinders and all. So that is something that we got clarification on. So what they said is basic engine, of course, is the same.
Yep.
What's different is the CNG plumbing.
Correct.
In this case, before I get to that part, what is different compared to other CNG systems is that there is the pressure regulator, which drops the pressure from the tank to what it has to be fed into the engine. That's different from the other CNG systems that they have in their other cars, because here it's a turbocharged engine. So the intake manifold pressure will be higher.
Of course.
What's different internally is that the piston rings are different.
Okay.
That's basically
So they're designed to run a drier engine.
So yeah, so they'll basically, I guess they'll be scraping less of the oil off the walls as they move up and down. That is what I'm getting to. What they also mentioned was this engine will consume more oil than the regular Nexon.
Right.
But if the regular service interval is 10,000 kilometers or the oil change interval is 15,000 kilometers, whatever it is, they said that the buffer
is enough to take care of it.
Correct. So any which way, the engine oil would have been enough for 20,000 kilometers or whatever. In this case, you'll be eating through some of that buffer. So fundamentally, your service intervals, your warranty, nothing has changed. Right? It's just that the system is consuming a bit more oil.
Got it.
And that's basically it. So that was a nice learning for me as well.
Right.
Okay. Pretty much that. So fundamentally looks just as good as the regular Nexon, feels as good on the inside.
Do you think the Nexon is good looking? Yes, no?
No.
Okay, good to know.
It's too busy for me. It gets the aerostyle wheels on this also, which I really don't like.
Which still the petrol and diesel don't deserve.
No, they get it. They all get them now. All of them have it. It's just that the aero styling is different for the EV versus this. So it's a dramatic looking car, and I don't think drama is my thing.
Got it.
So
quick summary.
Yes, sir.
Karthik has just driven the new Tata Nexon CNG manual with the 6-speed manual. What you should know is that this is the first time we are seeing a turbocharged 3-cylinder petrol engine with CNG integration, which currently makes it the most powerful CNG car in the class, because all of them circle about the 90 bhp block, and this car is just 20 short of its full petrol horsepower, and it's like a 100 bhp car. What Karthik really enjoyed about the car is that the integration between CNG and petrol in terms of switching between the two and not feeling a difference. At most speeds, it's seamless. When you select the CNG or petrol, you'll hear what sounds like a click, and that's basically it. You won't really notice much of a difference in the switchover of the fuels. And this smooth switchover is hard to pull off. Kudos to Tata to pull it off. Out on the highway, most of the time, again, this will not be a problem. When you're trying to overtake something and you're, say, already going 90-100 kilometers an hour, that's when you'll notice that there is a performance difference between petrol and CNG, and you'd wish that the CNG mode had a little bit more grunt, which obviously it can't. It's a low calorific value fuel. It's one of the things that it misses. What Tata has been very good at from the start is packaging their CNG cars, and what they've done with all of their cars is separate the giant fuel bottle into 2 bottles so that they can package it more neatly. It's the same case here. So you've got a total of 9 kilos of CNG on board the Nexon. That's under the floor of the boot, which raises the boot floor by a little bit, but as Karthik has found out, it doesn't change your usability of the boot by a lot. It takes away some of the space, obviously. Under the floor is a space saver as your spare wheel. So you've got all of these sides covered. So easy to drive in the city? Yes. Easy to drive on the highway? Yes. Tata claims 24 kilos per kilo of CNG. We think that figure is a little bit optimistic, but what that also means is versus a petrol, you'll have to drive a ICNG Nexon 40-45,000 kilometers to recover the additional 1.5 lakh rupees you'd pay over the petrol Nexon. The interesting thing here is Tata has been very cautiously, carefully and steadily pushing CNGs up the value ladder, whereas Marutis, for example, continue to sell middle variants as CNGs, no higher. Tata has done this with other cars before, and now even on the Nexon, you get a variant spread that takes you nearly all the way to what a top fully spec'd out Nexon, including with a panoramic sunroof, if you think that's luxury, is there available. The problem with that is now you can get a couple of Nexon EVs for the same price as the CNG with very similar equipment inside, and then the question becomes, It's the same price. Do you prefer CNG or do you prefer electric? Karthik's answer is, the more you are worried about the end of life of an electric, what will happen once the battery warranty is gone, etc., the more the CNG makes sense as a hassle-free alternative. Whereas the more you're calm about this and you're like, yeah, but electrics are silent and they have more performance, etc., the more the electrics will make sense. What this also means underneath is all the quirks of the Nexon, which we've discussed in detail on the Nexon EV stories, on the Nexon IC stories, all continue into the CNG car as well, which means the driver's seat is kind of awkward because because the steering wheel is a little bit off. The styling on the exterior was busy, remains busy. The rear seat is a very nice rear seat, remains a very nice rear seat, etc., etc. If you want more details on that, you'll have to watch one of those episodes, because honestly, this is the third time we're doing the Nexon. When they do the Nexon Hydrogen, that's the fourth time we'll be doing the Nexon. I just don't want to keep doing the Nexon again and again. So this is the end of the quick summary. And now I have one final question for Karthik. The only thing I missed telling you is, currently there is no automatic Nexon iCNG. What Karthik is saying is, if you're interested in this car and you live in a relatively busy city, traffic-wise, like Bengaluru or Mumbai, maybe don't jump in for the manual just yet. Karthik's gut says there should be some form of automatic that will come to this car shortly. We don't know if it's going to be a torque converter, which would be awesome, or it will be the IMT, which we've seen in, what was it, the Ultras.
The AMT we drove with the Tiago, but they also have the AMT already with the Nexon.
Correct. So there are AMT CNG cars already in the Tata lineup. That's one way to do it. Maybe they'll give this car, because it's more powerful, more luxurious, maybe they'll give it a torque converter. We don't know. But an automatic option should come. So don't jump in if that is your concern. Now, that's the end of the quick summary. I have a question. When is the Curvv iCNG coming, Karthik?
Brilliant question. Because to me, that big boot that they've added on, the one thing that it will do very well is to take in CNG tanks and still have space left for luggage.
I don't want it under the floor on the Curvv though.
Why?
I want it mounted on the flanks on the fastback roof, like a flux capacitor kind of.
That's quite the vision. Yeah.
Don't you think so? If you'd like them external tanks instead of internal tanks.
So you maintain your large 500-liter boot and have extra drama on the outside.
Yeah.
More drama.
Why not?
Good. Since you like drama, for sure.
Talking about drama, Karthik only had one issue with the car this time. The car went into limp home mode halfway through an intersection, which Karthik survived, crossing the intersection in limp home mode very, very well. And Tata basically said that just reboot the car a few times, because they may not be a problem. It just might be something momentary. That's what it was. I think 3-4 reboots later, the check light went away. The car started behaving normally again, and Karthik drove happily ever after.
Thank you very much for watching.
What are you driving next?
We've got the Nissan Magnite.
Magnite, as I like to call it.
We're going to be driving the Magnite. We asked you about it earlier as well. And in fact, we should have driven it by now, but there were some delays. So we are looking at all your responses. We are going to drive it. Then we have the Carnival.
The Kia Carnival?
Yes. And
I can see the headline now. Innova Killer.
Oh no, that's happened for the other one that I was just going to refer to. The BYD E-Max 7.
Innova Killer.
Yeah.
No, it's the headline for everything. Because Innova is the keyword on Google. It has nothing to do with the E-Max 7 or the Carnival. Yeah.
Actually, that's what happened even with the Carnival. They're like, oh, high cross. Now people will buy more high crosses, or people will not buy high crosses.
No, I am very clear. If my Bajaj Freedom story doesn't do well, the one guaranteed way to do the story and make it work is to say, Innova Killer. Bajaj Freedom 125.
Yeah.
No, but I'm not joking, okay? You try this. You set up a Google alert, for example, and you put the words Royal Enfield in it. And then you will discover that if Google shows you 10 stories, maybe 3 have something to do with Royal Enfield. The other 7 are just like, Royal Enfield killer Bajaj has arrived. And the story is about Bajaj Royal Enfield, not in the body copy only. It's only sitting in the headline. It's awesome.
Yeah, so we have that. What else? And then a little bit later after all of that, post Diwali will be the Desire.
Okay.
So we've got these lined up.
Oh, Desire is a big one.
Looking forward to that. Yeah. What about you?
I have nothing.
No?
I'm like Whitney Houston. I have nothing.
What? I don't even know what that means.
You do, right?
Whitney Houston, I have nothing.
It's a song. It's a song from the film Bodyguard. Come on.
I have nothing. Oh, I don't know this song.
Yes.
I thought there was the other famous song in Bodyguard. What was that?
This is a line from that song.
Oh, it is the line. Oh, okay. Okay. I know the song. Okay. ठीक है.
Hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
Any other education that is remaining today
No,
was Whitney
yeah,
Houston.
come on.
What's the name of the song?
I Will Always Love You.
Ah, I will always love you. Correct.
Yeah, there's a joke about it also, no? What's Whitney Houston's favorite kind of coordination?
What?
And I.
Oh shit.
Okay.
Okay. Stop.
Okay, I think we've gone on long enough. If there's anything that we haven't answered about the Tata Nexon CNG, please do leave us a comment. We'll get back to you. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching MotorInc First.